We're live.
Hey, well, guys, this is a little different. April 17th, National Mustang Day. We were in California. Would we be burning rubber out there right now, Billy, or what?
Yes, sir, you would be.
Um, I got with me here some great car guys. We might have a little mystery guest in our back pocket when we get out of what our comfort zone is. But I said before, it's not going to be perfect. This is our first time. This is amazing times have gone on here. I never even heard of Zoom 3 weeks ago, and apparently now I know how to do it and broadcast. So I'm going to welcome Billy Longfellow from California. Billy, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Jim?
I'm good, man. How's the weather there?
It's doing really good. I just got a little text from Rod Herrick from Australia. He's celebrating Mustang Day there with the new R-Spec Mustangs, the 500 limited edition ones they did with some of our parts on there, AirDesign's parts.
That's cool. That's cool, Martin. And I know you're probably tucked in Huntsville in your garage. Everything I've ever seen you drive is white. What is that red thing behind you there?
That is the only non-white vehicle I own. And by the way, I don't really like hearing Billy tell me, about California being nice and sunny, whereas I've got a muddy, snow-covered laneway here up in Muskoka. So I think we've got each end of the spectrum here.
Well, we're going to talk all things Mustang. We talked about this before. If you're tuning in for the latest coronavirus news, you're going to be sadly disappointed because we're going to talk about what our passions are, and hopefully you guys will have some fun. We're going to give away some swag here. We're hopefully going to get going and give away some hats and T-shirts. I'll show you what those are later. And shout out to my buddy Ken Lamont there. Ken Lamont used to own a 5-liter LX, and we're going to talk about Fox bodies, and we're going to talk about all that. So I'm going to start off with talking about trying to go in sort of a chronological order here, I guess. And 64, first year of the Mustang, and it was launched, and it went crazy, and it went nuts. And Billy, I know for sure that you have a passion for design, and maybe just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into designing automobiles.
Well, that's there you go back in history. Actually, it's funny. I had bought a friend of mine owned a body shop, and he had a 240Z that was in an accident. So I basically every day after work I'd go to restore it, and what I did is I had a 280Z radiator and it stuck down too far, so I shaped a little air dam for it. And there's a company called Z Motorsports, and I made an air dam for it, and that was probably like 4,000 part numbers ago. It just kept on going. Kind of went in the backwards way, but turned out to be really nice.
Well, your background from artistry, you've had, I don't know, like, is it 11, 12? Your first SEMA Award from, let's talk about that first. Start there.
Well, my first ones were when I had a company called Wings West. We had done a little Focus, and it was actually Jack Nasser actually had come out to see us at Wings West, and they put us on the cover of Fortune magazine, did an article about us. And then that led to, he said he wanted to know, because we were doing all the Hondas, he wanted to know if we do something for the European Focuses. And I swear it was funny because, God,
did you just say Honda?
Yeah, then Jack Nasser came out and he goes, I want you to do some Focuses for us. And it was funny because within 1 week we had like 5 of them. We had like 3 hatchbacks and 2 4-doors. They just kept dropping them off, and that started our relationship with Ford, and it just kept on going.
And we're going to talk about some of the cars you had some awards with, and we'll get back to that. Martin, Focus, that's funny because the first MBRP part I ever bought was a catback exhaust. It had to be the year 2000 when the Focus first came out. And then along the way, somehow you and I ended up at a country music show, and you don't like country music, but I think your wife does. And you had some giant lifted F-250, and the next thing I know, we're in Vegas together at the Country Music Awards, hanging out. We've been
riding Harleys.
That's right. And I forgot about that part. And but you've MBRP Exhaust Mustang is a huge part of your business. And I know that it's a big part of it. We're going to talk about that, but maybe talk about how did you get started in this whole crazy game of horsepower?
Well, you know what? I think we're born with it. It's kind of a sickness. I think the three of us here, and likely those watching online, have the same sickness we do. So once you realize you have it, you might as well jump into it. I think I came by it naturally. My father, Gord Barkey, we grew up in Newmarket, for anyone that's on here from Ontario, kind of deal. And he had a one-man show basically where the garage was right attached to the house, and he would have Harleys or race cars or pulling tractors show up at any given day of the week, and he would build one-off custom exhaust on those sort of things. So I grew up, listening to basically anything and everything loud. Now, the funny story is, my parents will tell me now, I guess as a teenager, I used to tell them I never want to do that. And I've done a few things in between, but wouldn't you know it, you sort of come back to your roots and you come back to your passion. So one day I just started building exhaust for friends' cars, and eventually I guess I started charging $100 here and $100 there, and before you knew it, we had developed some, I guess, the taste and just the need to be louder, go faster, and go from there. But ultimately, as any MBRP fans know, we took that passion and actually started in the power sports with snowmobiles, actually.
And you started that out of your garage, right?
We did. So MBRP actually started in Berks Falls, Ontario, which is about 20 minutes north of me here, and one car garage. The garage I'm sitting in now, I could probably fit 4 of the garages that I started in. So kind of cool.
And your first car, or your first, it wasn't actually your first Mustang, but you wanted to buy a Mustang, and you were young. And tell me that story.
Well, it would be early 80s. I really, really wanted, I wanted a car, and it ended up being a 76 Ford Capri. That's the one I wanted, actually, was the Fox body. But you know what? When you're a young kid, you can't afford everything you want, needless to say. So I wanted a Ford Capri. I wanted a Mustang. I ended up with a Ford Capri. And needless to say, I think you had a picture of a Ford Capri, and mine was pretty rough. But somehow I got it certified, got it on the road, and that was my first car. Basically, I raced everybody in Berks Falls, Huntsville, Katrine, Novar. Everybody and anybody I could race, I raced with that 76 Ford Capri, or Mercury Capri.
Well, Billy, when we talk about the Mustang and the history of the Mustang and design, like it just slammed a home run out of the park. And you're involved a lot with OEMs and OEM design, a lot with Ford, and back then they debuted that 64 at the New York World's Fair, I believe it was. But you're involved in a lot in the SEMA show. What is your memory of when the Mustang launched? And have you ever come across, is there anything in the industry like a Mustang that you can compare it to?
Jim, here's a funny story. I never was a Mustang fan, and then Ford came to us for the 2005 Mustang to build one for SEMA, and we got one. We got a body in white, and then we got one probably about 3 or 4 months for anybody saw it. And all of a sudden, all these people start showing up to the shop looking at it, and I just couldn't believe the cult, the Mustang cult, and how fanatic they were. And then I've been hooked ever since. That just kind of put us on the map, and we just kept on doing more and more Mustangs.
And I think we all know that the Mustang is the best-selling sports car. But at SEMA every year, the Mustang, I don't remember a year when it didn't win the award of the most accessorized car. And that's still true today. I know that. But you've been involved. Your first SEMA award on a Mustang was the 2005. The 2005 Boy Racer, I think it was called. Is that right?
Correct.
And
that was actually the 2004 SEMA show, because the Mustang was the 2005, and we won the best of show. And then also it was kind of cool because a week after that, they put it on the cover of Auto Week. So that would kind of launched us into the realms. And also we went and registered the name Boy Racer. Ford never registered it, so we did a patent on it, and we got the trademark for it.
And that Boy Racer Mustang that's that big high wing spoiler. But what was the relationship between that and the Need for Speed cars that you worked on?
Well, Need for Speed kind of came later on. So that was that was later. That was in 2015. So what happens when there was a company out in Michigan that built all of them. We were involved on the build on it. There was a guy named Topo that did all the wide body on it. So we designed and built a wing for it, but we were behind the scenes of the whole thing. And I think they built like 9 or 10 cars, but most people don't know the one that Aaron Paul was in was the only one that was that was a full car. The rest of them were all built for the stunt cars because they ended up getting all crashed and everything.
Well, that was the 2014 movie, and I think it culminated with at the end of the movie was that was sort of the debut for the 2015 body style, right?
Correct, but if you looked at that car, you could see a lot of styling cues on it for the 15. Now that you go back and look at it, you'll see what I'm talking about. But being on the inside of it, I knew that was going to be what the 15 was looking like with some of the styling cues.
Well, I think I'm struggling with my own technology here, but let's see if I bring this picture. This is what are we looking at here, Billy?
Those are some of the cars that the stunt guys, as you can see, the one on the left is got the little where the glass is out. That's when the car drove off the cliff and it went away in the helicopter, and you can see the little bullet holes on it. And they're not really bullet holes; they're like little snap, like little firecrackers. So if you go put your hand on them, they stick out like barnacles. But from the picture, they look like they went in, but they went out. And if you can see like the one on the right, you can see all the Bondo on the fender, because these cars were, when they put them together, they didn't have it was funny, they don't have the technology like we would have where we would make a mold and make a part. They just basically each car they clayed up and kind of glassed on there, and it was kind of backwards, but it was kind of neat watching how Hollywood works, and then how we work as a manufacturer.
Were those cars, were they actual performance cars? Were they actually modified, or was everything fake? Or was there, in other words, was there steak with the sizzle?
No, they were all modified, but the one that Aaron Paul drove was the only one that had it was full supercharged interior. And that car was never used in any of the motion pictures. It was just for the close-ups. And it was funny because there was a friend of mine, Melvin, that Betancourt, that did all the the behind the scenes. He does that for what they call to show cars for Ford. So he wanted everything really nice and down low. And I was talking to the stunt director. So when he'd leave, the stunt director would go in there and he'd cut away everything and raise the car a little bit, because he was telling me that what those Panavision cameras rent for a day. And he was saying that he worked with the stunt drivers. So basically, if that car, they couldn't stop a car and fix the tire, so they would just take a Sawzall, cut the fender out, and fix it later. So his job was, as Melvin wanted everything like a show car, he had to make it stunt ready. So those guys, it was funny. Those guys were always clashing over the designer to the stunt director, behind the scenes.
Well, you're a designer, and the clash between designing and engineering, is sort of classic fights, I guess, in getting a car to production. And there's always some compromises, and that's why guys like Martin can make a living and come out with exhaust. But from a design perspective, wheels. Why did it take so long for good-looking wheels to come from the factory, and you didn't get the car, and the first thing you wanted to do is get rid of them? What took so long to get great looking wheels on cars like the Mustang?
Well, I think, Jim, that's one of the reasons that if you, it's funny, at SEMA, if you have an exhibitor's badge, you can get in 2 to 3 hours before the public gets in. And if you watch Thursday morning, the majority of the people in there are designers, from Ford or all the manufacturers. And what they're doing is they're scoping out all this new stuff for the upcoming cars. So, like when we did that original Boy Racer, we had 22s on it, and everybody thought we were crazy. Now you see them all day long on cars. But the thing about it is, once these guys were selling so many rims, it takes the manufacturers. You got to remember, because they're buying such big volumes, and it's just like they don't really look at the cars like as you and I do, or Martin. It's just a commodity. But it's like anything else. They don't want to leave all the money on the table to all the aftermarket guys too.
And,
Well,
I'm glad they do actually, right? Because there's opportunities out there. And think of the jobs that creates and the support in the economy and so on and so forth. So I'm glad they do leave us some room to continue on.
Well, that's the fun part of our business, because it's always challenging, and we're on the forefront, and we're always making new stuff, and it's like anything else. Once the bean counters come in there, they cut all the good stuff out anyway. Because I've been lucky to be on got some of the Ford builds and also be behind the scenes and go into the design centers. And God, you would see cars in the drawings of some of these young guys. I mean, they're just unreal. By the time it goes to production, the bean counters cut everything out of it. It's the same thing. It's like the lights will be really intricate, and then all of a sudden they'd start taking everything out of the light because they have to take out $3 or something.
Well, I got Lauren Sang is watching us, and he's going to want to ask something, I'm sure, about racing with Martin. But first, I got Dave Turner Schaumburg wants to know if you guys think the Mustang brand will continue to attract customer loyalty and drive aftermarket demand, no matter what platform Ford develops for this name. What do you think? Mustang going to continue driving the aftermarket and enthusiasts?
Yes, sir. Because I know some of the Ford designers, and I can just look at their history of what they've done so far. And yeah, as you can see, a couple of the GT350 and the 500. So if you like those, you can imagine probably what they're going to do on the new one when it comes out.
And no designers are going to let this chassis, this platform, die a slow death by any means. There's too much momentum there to let it die.
Yeah,
so,
you're right.
And the neat thing about, I don't know, I can't speak for every diehard, but I know for me personally, I usually like whatever comes out that year. Now, might be aspects that I don't like on something, and there might be a change that I don't like, but generally I can find myself, and it may speak for others, but when there's change, I like change. And although I may not agree with every single change on the platform, I'll still basically follow a good, cool platform, even though, 7 or 8 of the changes I like out of the 10 or 11 that were maybe applied to that platform. So I think for that mentality and that you're going to stick with what you like, and in a Mustang case, needless to say, it's had many, many years of followings. It's not going to go anywhere but up.
Well, I got Matt's got a question about the future of that, but before we get to that, I'm going to show you guys this picture, and I'm going to ask you a question here, and I'm going to say, anybody know what that is? Martin?
Well, it looks like an old Corvair, but I know it's not a Corvair. Look, the front end looks like it. I'm gonna say it's an old Mustang.
Yeah, it is, and this was just on Autoblog recently. These pictures were discovered, and Ford is looking for information. You talk about designers and what their passion is. This is a mid-engine Mustang, and this never saw the light of day, and nobody understood what the concept was for. Or who designed this car even, but that was in the mid 60s. It's pretty crazy. I think.
Hey, look at that picture. You can see all the ashtrays right by the front fender.
I didn't notice that.
Right in the office setting, you've got 3 ashtrays sitting there.
Let's see. Oh yeah, the stand-up ones
sorry,
over
4
here.
ashtrays. I can see a 4th one.
They're over here.
Yeah.
Different times, eh? But can you imagine somebody gets this far with a concept and nobody at Ford Motor Company even has any record of it? I guess
must be some kind of a skunk work.
Yeah. Well, but Matt wanted to know, what do you think? His question is, what's your opinion of the route the Mustang is going, electric, et cetera, and the possibility of stopping the GT350 production? Do you think that's going to happen?
You talking for me?
Yeah,
I think I can say what I want to happen, but I think Billy's probably got better insight as to what may happen.
Yeah, I think the electric is how are you going to stop it with Tesla? You're going to have to embrace it. So what it's I don't know. That's a good question. What's your thoughts on it, Martin?
Well, first off, remember you're asking an exhaust guy. My thoughts on electric vehicles. You know what? Here's the thing. I guess I would come back and say, is Mustang the right platform for Ford? You know what I mean? When really the Mustang generally up until the latest versions have been that V8 muscle car. You know what I mean? And even when it was the 6 and it was still that commuter car that had the sporty pony car type deal. So is the Mustang the right platform? I'd probably say no, it's not actually just for myself. And I'm a little biased because obviously an electric car doesn't need my services and doesn't do much for my cash flow or my jobs. So I think as a whole, the world needs the electric cars kind of thing. I would say no, Mustang's not the right platform for it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to agree, and I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to agree that the electric cars don't mean a whole lot for me for revenue either, when we know the servicing history. But I'm going to piss a bunch of Mustang people off. The perfect thing Ford did is call that car a Mustang, because you've got clearly right now, until something changes, the performance aspect of electric cars is what's appealing to people. And I don't think a 5-liter Mustang guy is the target audience. And they may buy some mach-es, but the one thing about owning a Mustang, you don't have to explain to somebody what it is you have. When you tell somebody you have a Mustang, you have an exciting car to drive, and why not leverage that brand, and why not use the Mustang name on the mach-e? And I know the true Mustang enthusiasts do not agree with me, but that's my perspective. It's coming either way, but I've not had a chance to drive one. But from what I hear, they're just a thrill to drive.
So to Billy's point, Billy brought up Tesla, because when you think electric car, that's basically the go-to brand, let's just say. My question would be, how many current Tesla owners are Mustang, even know what a Mustang is? And I don't want to, just like you don't want to knock Mustang owners, I don't want to knock Tesla owners, but some of them won't even know what a Mustang is. And if they do by brand or by recognition, then they've never owned one, they never wanted one, they weren't even sporty oriented, like the Mustang, basically, like its heritage. So that's my reasoning for sort of saying that wrong chassis for new technology.
I understand. Well, I guess we're going to find out maybe in about a year or so. We got off track, or I got off track, and we were talking about design and where it's gone through. And I wanted to kind of roll through a couple of pictures. And one thing that we hear that's coming, and we hear the Mach 1 is coming back, but how does a designer, and I'm going to try and get there, Billy, I'm going to ask you this. When you're in design and you're given an iconic name, like Mustang or like Mach 1, how serious do you take your job to stay true to the brand or to the model?
Well, I kind of look at it as it's kind of as a painting to me, or a picture. It's all about the DNA of the car. The whole job, what we do here at AirDesign is we want to complement. We don't want to take away from anything. So, we don't want to add something on it. It's just going to be like, it's like makeup. Too much makeup ruins anything. The whole thing is you want to make it look like it came from Ford, from the design center. It's kind of what, maybe the bean counters, they needed to take some price out of the car. So they had to, cut back on a few things. So you want to make it look like it was designed or it came from one of the Ford designers. And if they say it, they like it, then that's a compliment to us.
You just said too much makeup ruins anything. I don't think Farah did too much damage to this 74 Mustang too, but I take it what you mean. You can't go over the top, but when I look at a brand new Mustang today and I look at the headlights, I'm not a designer. I'm terrible at it, but I can see where the inspiration from the original Mustang come from, those, if you will, those slashes, or I call them like almost like a shark's gill, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And so you have to work within that guideline, or always thinking, okay, I can't go too far away from what a Mustang's supposed to mean. And,
Well, just take a look at how the lights are black on the inside. You've seen cars out there where they're just, they're just all chrome and the lights just look so cheap. So, and you can see, like, especially on the new Mustangs, how nice those lights look in there. It just sets the car off. A bad light can ruin the whole car, because I look at it, you got maybe 5 to 10 seconds if I do like a front bumper, like we did on like the last Mustang, because the guy, when he walks up or a lady walks to the car, they're not going to look at the rear to buy it. They're going to look at the front. So if you don't catch them in the first 5-10 seconds, they're gone.
So we just ran a poll on
just
Facebook
from a
here.
visual impact standpoint.
They're walking off, you know. So I
So
mean,
we just ran a poll on Facebook here just to see how people felt about the Mustang Mach-E. And we've got 16 votes and so far. Only 2 people think naming it or associating with the Mustang mark is a good idea. Exactly half of voters have said that, oh, I guess we'll see. And about 30% have said it's a terrible idea. So there you go. Not many people think it's a good idea.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. But one thing I know about I know about social media is if you can get 50% of the people to rip it and 50% of the people to love it, then it gains traction. So I wouldn't think that Ford made this move without knowing it wasn't going to be controversial, and they weighed the pros and cons. But hey, that's just my opinion. I want to kind of shift gears here a little bit and get Martin and talk a little bit about horsepower and performance, and from that side, not the design and styling side. Martin, what percentage of your business, just roughly speaking, or how important is Mustang to, say, MBRP Exhaust?
Well, you know what, Mustang's one of our go-to platforms for sure. And again, as we've already been talking about, they offer so much. And the enthusiast really is, the Mustang owner is a performance enthusiast. And that's why I can hang my hat on this E Mustang. But anyway, you know what? They're V8 guys, they're turbo guys if we go with EcoBoosts. And yeah, just great customer base for us. And we've been accepted into that group. You know what I mean? That large group in North America I've treated as well. So for us, it's probably our one single platform that has the most offerings across the board for any one of the given, each of the given Mustangs that are offered. So yeah, you know what, every time I walk on the floor and I see, you know, we do diesel truck, we do power sports, we do this, and then it's Mustang. And then I'll go again, Mustang again. And then it's like, wow, we're packing Mustang, and then we're shipping Mustang. So for us, percentage wise, I couldn't really, we have thousands of SKUs. So it'd be tough for me to pick just the Mustang SKUs, but I can tell you, we're forever shooting video, shooting content, developing, adding parts, putting out different, you know, upgrades or changes. As a matter of fact, this red one on the hoist here behind me is just getting a brand new active exhaust for the 2018 and up. So although we already have axle backs, cat backs, X pipes, resonator bypass, we've now also added a full active cat back with carbon fiber tips. So even if you're taking an 18, which is a past model year, it's so good to us that we go back to those years and even add what now is active exhaust as well, which came out in 18 on that particular car. So we're never finished, and we're always sort of going with where our customers and our groups need and want us to go. So it seems like the opportunities are endless for Mustang, for us.
Well, the Mustang, like it's really always has been a global car, but sort of unofficially. The car, when it first came out in the 60s, it was sold in Germany, I think, I believe a slightly different name. And we know that the Australians love V8 cars, but since 2015, let's just keep it in that realm, when it truly did become a global car. Is there a difference around the world of people that are what they want and what they're seeking for performance modifications, or is it pretty much the same?
Well, you know what? When you say around the world, it's I'm almost embarrassed to say we basically ship like 99.9% of our products in North America. Now, anyone that knows me in business knows I'm always pushing forward. I'm always growing. We're always building new buildings, adding more people. And the funny part is, and I guess it's we're very fortunate, it's just to try to keep up with the North American market. So some could say I feel I maybe left some on the table by not getting around the world, as you say. But every time I add, you know, more infrastructure and build more products, it never seems to leave North America. So we're still trying to keep up with the North America demand. So I really can't answer. I don't know if Billy has any thoughts on, you know, the worldwide venue or opportunities, but for the performance side and the exhaust side, we're all North America.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Martin. It's you know, we sell now to China, we sell to Europe, we sell to Australia, South America, in the Middle East on Ford accessories for the Mustang. And,
Nice.
it's quite a challenge because like we have to get like the homologation for China and same thing for Australia, as going into Europe, it's more the TUV. We do the side scoops for California Special. We got a new color coming out that's going to be, that they're bringing out to Europe this year. It'll be a right-hand drive. So, that's going to be exciting, for AirDesign.
Well,
Very
that's
cool.
you were just, I got, that was just this past, couple months ago, Billy?
Yes,
That's what
that was the Global Auto Show that was in right around Thanksgiving. We were in Saudi Arabia for, it's like 12 days. So that's Von Gittin. And I've known Von, actually, when I did the 2005 Boy Racer, he liked that so much that I built the kit for his first Mustang when he was with Falcon. So I've stayed in contact with him ever since 2005. So we did an interview with him. He was doing drifting and everything. So we did a little interview and we did a video on like behind the scenes of the Global Auto Show.
Well,
Just a bit of a car guy.
Yeah. Well, the pictures from this Global Auto Show, like they had a Hot Wheels track, like life size, where cars are ripping around in a circle, like crazy stuff. And we see Dubai, and we see the cars from Dubai. But from a global performance standpoint, I know when Ford launched the Mustang, they expected the Europeans to buy 75, 80% were going to be the EcoBoost 4-cylinder. Some of the countries, I'm pretty sure it's the Netherlands, they have like a 50% import tax based on the 5-liter engine, and they still didn't have enough. That they want the American V8. So I'm surprised by that. I'm surprised and maybe I'm surprised and not surprised that the demand was there. But what about Martin, what about in North America itself? Let's break it down then between Canadians and Americans from your perspective. Any difference in their preferences for performance, or are we all about the same?
Well, you know what? Before we get into Canadian and US, it's funny you mentioned about V8s in Europe versus the turbo Mustangs. Believe it or not, and totally against my prediction, the EcoBoost outsells the V8 for us in the Mustang. Can you believe that? So, I mean, I can only, first off, the turbo car is an amazing car. Actually, Jim, what do you sell most of? Or how's your sales compare?
97% V8.
Wow. So for us, like, I mean, again, we're moving a lot of exhaust for these cars, and we outsell on the EcoBoost than we do than the V8. So that being the case, I think it's a lot of people that are probably, I don't know whether you save money, whether you get more mileage, whether you can convince the wife that you're buying just a little V6 car, and the whole 9 yards versus, or you're not buying a big V8 and then you mod it out and away you go. And now to answer your question on the Canadian versus American, it's funny you ask, because the biggest change really, and for us personally, is exhaust tone. We'll find, generally speaking, the American consumer wants more volume, wants a louder exhaust note than the Canadian consumer, which is kind of neat to know. But it's the same message year over year, car over car. So when we design an exhaust system, it's almost easier to make your car loud. You know what I mean? You can build an exhaust system, you look through the muffler, and it's that loud. And you know what? To be honest, back in the day when we had less technology and we were less funding and engineering, we kind of went that route. But in the last, say, 10 years, 7 for sure, we've spent a lot of time, bringing the technology into our systems and bringing the sound levels down and more of a tuned or an appropriate note. And the Canadian consumer, Canadian buyer generally wants, a handful of dBs less than the American. So if we have a race in a street, we can almost say that the street will outsell in Canada, and the race version, and that's what we do with a lot of our muscle cars now, we'll offer a street and a race, and the race version will outsell in the US. That's probably the biggest standout between the North American markets.
That's interesting. And what about the actual exhaust systems itself, with the 304 stainless, the 409, and the aluminized steel? I would imagine that is Canada primarily 304 just for rust corrosion, or is it still a price point issue?
Well, Jim, I wish it was 304. And, I haven't done myself and my marketing team, we haven't done ourselves any favors in the stainless. And I won't use this time to really, I'll use just a few moments of education for Mustang guys watching and anybody watching. The problem is in the market, and it could be in anything in stainless, manufacturers put the word stainless out there, you know what I mean? And this is stainless, whether it be any component whatsoever on your car, Mustang, or any brand. And unfortunately for the consumer, they see a low cost aluminized or a low cost metal, anything, and then they see quote stainless. The problem is a lot of those manufacturers are using generally speaking, a 409 series or a 400 series stainless. The problem with that is there's no chromium, or there's very little chromium and or nickel content in it, and it will rust. So yes, in Canada, and you know what, we see it even in the Midwest, anywhere where you're going to get the snow and the salt and different odds and ends like that, you just end up with rust on your 400 series. So as a manufacturer, we sort of jumped in as well. And like everybody else, stainless for a medium price point. And we got away from the best stainless. And in the automotive, it's usually a 304. There's other 300 series in marine and various odds and ends. But generally speaking, it's 304 for the automotive series or automotive market. And
what would a OEM exhaust, is that, what does it come with from the factory equivalent to?
Generally 409. That's why when you get underneath a vehicle that has had the winters either up here or, even sometimes where a vehicle, and Billy, I'm sure it's not in California by any means, but if you go to Michigan, Ohio, New York, that sort of thing, you can get underneath a vehicle, and although it's a stainless, like a stock vehicle, a truck or whatever, you get under there, it's a stainless exhaust, and it is, but it's a 400 series. So really what we're doing right now as a manufacturer, we're actually not eliminating, but we're minimizing our 400 series offerings now in cars and trucks and even power sports. And we're just going to the best. So we've always had a good, better, best. So, $100, $200, and a $300 segment. But the 400 for any consumers, especially when your Mustang's your baby, just drop the good and better and go get the best. And it's not to sell you more. It's almost best value anyway. You get the best products, and whether it's our brand or any brand, or whether it's exhaust versus heck, an alternator bracket for all I care, just go get the 304 and be done with it. So for my 2 cents, I would say that the best is the way to go. And unless you can get away, like again, maybe in California there, where you're driving your Mustang only, maybe in the good weather, then maybe an aluminized system suits the bill for somebody there, or Mexico and various odds and ends, you know what I mean? But generally speaking, 304 is the only way to go stainless if you get the bad weather and you want something to last and to look its best, because it will look just as good 2 years down the road or 10 years down the road, generally speaking, as it does the day you pulled it out of the box.
Well, we run about a 20-second lag time here with FaceTime, so I'm going to go back to a couple of comments and then I'll ask you. Chris Kasparian, a good buddy of ours, huge Mustang guy, but he's a car guy in period. So if he's still watching, just do him a favor, Martin, and just lean to your right a little bit. He got it right that it was a mid-engine Mustang. Go ahead, lean to your right, There you are, Chris. All right, that's all you're getting. That's all you're getting. Okay. Barry Toplicki, he has a question for anyone. If you had one chance to drive any Mustang from the past or future, what would it be and why? Any Mustang from past and future.
Billy, you go first.
You're the race car driver. I'm the exterior guy.
Yeah. Well, I think I've driven probably I've driven the best Mustang ever built from a race car perspective, and that would be a Multimatic built GT4 Mustang. But if I could drive something I haven't driven, I would say, I would say an early Shelby 500, like a rag top, just a real old muscle car. Now, the thing is, I'm all about new cars because I like technology and I like grip and pulling G's. But if, to me, that's probably one of the best Mustangs built. So I tip my hat to Sean Mason and the race team at Multimatic. And you know what? On that note, I should give a shout out. I'm gonna give a shout out to AWA, Andrew Witechko Racing, where I raced that car with him for a couple of years. So, but back to it, it'd be an early Shelby, maybe a rag top. Put Ginger in the seat and just head off for a nice drive.
There's
that one was good too, actually.
they're all good. Well, I'm Billy. Before you pop in there, because you've driven every Mustang that's coming in and out of the SEMA show. I remember I used to work for another dealer, Brandon Ford in Uxbridge, and he got himself a '67 Shelby GT 500 that he bought from Anthony Polito. And guys would argue, but it's a 427 side oiler, which never came from the factory. But back in the day, they had a 90-day warranty on these cars, and you'd blow your motor up, and guys would come to the parts department and say, "I want a 427." So I drove that car, and you could not go to the gas station if you've been driving for 20, 25 minutes. The car wouldn't restart. It was so hot. Your legs were burning. There was so much heat in there. The battery from back in the time couldn't crank the motor over. And, it wasn't really a fun experience, and it was just brutally scary to drive. So for me to answer that question, it's anything 2015 and up. I just can't. Every 2015, that's the best Mustang ever made, in my opinion. But, they've all been great and fun. But the 2015 and up with independent rear suspension, and now, that big debates. What about the 10-speed automatic? I mean, that thing is just wickedly fast. And I'm the one that said I'd never drive an automatic. But Billy, what about you?
Well, it's people ask me all the time, "What's your favorite car?" And it's like, well, anything that's going to drive. If you buy me something, I'll drive it. But I'll tell you a story. When we were lucky enough to get the 015 Mustang, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, and I had taken it home from work to my house, and I'm probably like an hour's drive. And there was a little coffee shop at the bottom of the hill, a bagel place, and I live on top of the hill. And I remember the time I hit the 6 speed, I was doing 95, and I remember I would go to do a left-hand turn, coming off the street, and I just punched the thing, and the car would go sideways. And I'm thinking, and that was before we built it into the Boy Racer and put a Vortec supercharger. I mean, that thing was just wicked fast, just stock. And I was thinking, man, this thing's just going to get you in trouble. I might as well just take my license and mail it in now, because they're going to get me.
Well, I know. You were telling me this story, Billy, but I'm going to ask you to tell everybody else about it. You don't live too far from Chip Foose, and you guys you're kind of in the same brain. You're both designers. But tell me what Chip wants to buy for a Mustang and what he wants to do with that.
Oh, he called up and he was looking for he wanted to buy a 350, and he wants to, when the Bronco comes out. And it's funny because I would say the last 2 years he'd call me for SEMA. "You doing a Bronco? I want to be on it." So as everybody knows, it's not out yet. So he wants to buy a Bronco, and what he's going to do is he's just going to take the body off the 350, and he's going to stretch the Bronco and stick it on the GT 350.
Well, maybe that might be the favorite Mustang of all time.
It'll be different.
I got another question here from Dave Turner again. Now, a performance-based question. So we're going to throw this one at you, Martin. What percentage of the current Mustang owner base would you consider hardcore as it pertains to competitive driving of all kinds? Not necessarily single focus, but any level. Do they want to drive their Mustangs to the limit legally? So I think he's talking about racetracks. What percentage of Mustang owners do you think you could put into the true enthusiast segment?
Well, I think it almost breaks down by the car to start with. So, if you're driving anything, well, before the EcoBoost came out, if you were driving any non-performance Mustang, you know what I mean? The older versions, I would say they were not track guys. And the reason I say that, before I started racing, in IMSA and World Challenge and everything, I was doing regional events and track days at Mosport and various odds and ends. And you would only ever see a V8, a GT or a Shelby Mustang there. So, I think you have to break it down by what platform you're driving. And then really, I think a lot of those guys just never really, they enjoy the car because of its sounds, its looks, its heritage. So it's probably a fairly small, and then I'm going to guess, but maybe a small percentage, maybe 10 to 15% of Mustang guys will probably ever take that car to the track and be able to push it I don't mean everyone could drive their Mustang fast down an interstate or down, the 400 series, but to really push it in a corner or push it in a break zone. Now, I could get a lot of hate mail or a lot of, no, I drive mine. No, you think you drive it hard, but you're not pushing it to what that car can actually do. And Jim, if somebody jumps in their Shelby 500, like the one picture behind you or what have you, or GT350 or 350R for that matter. A lot of guys say, yeah, I drive it to the nth degree. No, you're maybe at 70% of that car's capacity. So the true enthusiast that wants to go and push their car, very, very small. The next group are guys that want to learn more about their car. And what a great opportunity. And I think it's the best thing you can do is take your Mustang to a track day. And don't be the guy that knows it all. Just be the guy that takes it all in, and you'll go home really, really enjoying your Mustang, no matter what platform it is or how much power you've added or whether it's stock. And then that's how you really enjoy your Mustang.
Yeah, I agree. I've had the pleasure of going out with the Toronto Mustang Club guys, and just a fantastic group of guys that are very respectful and really they enjoy their cars. And at the times I've been out there, I've never seen any irresponsible behavior, and it's just good fun. And if you haven't been out there to a track day and you have a Mustang, don't be afraid to just join these guys. It's a good social, guys and girls, a good social club, and a great time to get started. And while we're on that vein, Martin, I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite racetrack? I guess we'll start there.
Watkins Glen.
And why would you say Watkins Glen?
Well, it's got a few racetracks all mixed into one. First, I used to say Mosport because that was the track I knew best when I first started racing at a professional level. And it was my local track, so I had the most laps on it. So, when it came to racing there, I was comfortable. But as I've been blessed to be able to go race all around North America, I would say Watkins Glen has some Mosport in it, it's CTMP in it with some of the corners. You know what, like basically from turn 1 right up to the bus stop, you basically don't even lift in a GT3 car. So, 1, 2, 3 combination up through the S's all the way to what's called the bus stop, you're flat. And to me, that's just an absolute thrill where you're relying on aero and the car's set up to get you through that. It's just got some great brake zones. It's just a very, very busy track. When you're done a lap in a relatively fast or a fast car, you finish that lap and you go, okay, I got one done. Now you have 40 more to go. You know what I mean? So it pulls the most out of you. It's the survival of the fittest. It's, you really want to, be athletic and in good form to race that track, and all those attributes pay, from your mindset to your respiratory to everything outside of car setup. You know what I mean? So it's just a track that really demands a lot from you. And there's good passing zones. There's some good mile an hour. It's just got everything all wrapped up into one. And it's only 6 hours from home here.
Well, I grew up as a kid, as a race fan, really as an amateur photographer, going out to what was called Mosport, now Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And I remember many, many years ago, Car and Driver had the top 10 corners in the world, and they talked about Mosport Corner 2. And what can you tell us about what that's like to go flat out in there in your Mustang Shelby GT350 race car?
Well, to be honest, you can't do in a GT4 car, which is what the Multimatic GT4 Shelby is. You can't do turn 2 flat out. But that's where you obviously go as fast as you can, and you have a lift at the top of the hill. The car gets really, really light and basically wants to come out from underneath you. And then it's all about managing the mid corner and when you get back to power. So turn 2 in just about any car until you get to a prototype. Well, I guess if you do small cars, where I started in a Viper, so I don't know anything about the small cars kind of deal. I guess you wouldn't lift in an underpowered, say, a Momentum car. But anything from, say, GT4 and then bigger GT3s, you basically will lift no matter what. And then if you get up into prototypes where you have that much more aero again, you'd be back to no lift there kind of a deal. But turn 2 is just a thrill. I can remember, in the Viper, the Porsche Cup, even in the KTM, where the KTM started getting some really, really good aero, I would take people for a drive, and they would basically, you just knew they were going to say, like, when are you going to lift? When are you going to lift? When are you going to lift? You know what I mean? And because I knew the capabilities of whatever car we were in. It was so fun to watch other people and just sort of get their response coming down turn two. Don't quote me, but I think it's a 4-story drop. You know, it's off camber. Back in the day, it wasn't too long ago where there was nothing, like there was grass between you and the wall. And I've seen cars literally, when you leave the pavement and you go to the grass, you do nothing but speed up, even if you got full lock on. And then you hit the wall and it's just not cool. Now they've sort of, I was going to say it's not quite as ballsy now. It's still the same corner, but they paved between the track and the wall. So you get all that extra time to slow down or maybe gain control and stay. So it's much safer now. But when I first started with all that grass there, it was just one that every time you came around, it was kind of one like, gee, I hope I make it. And then after that, oh, I made it. I made it again. So kind of a cool corner. Now, the neat thing about Mosport is I'm sure I can remember I was sitting in a drive tech class with Jerry Lowe. Still hangs around Mosport all the time. He has got a driving school there. And I remember Jerry telling me that Mosport is actually the 3rd fastest track in the world. So if you think about it, that's pretty cool when you think of all the cool tracks around the world. And if you take the average speed around that track, it's the 3rd fastest track in the whole world. That's pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah.
Right in our backyard.
Well, Billy, right in your backyard in California, you got some great racetracks there. But I know you've spent, especially during your Wings West day, you spent a lot of time in Japan. What is the racing culture like in Japan for? Is where drifting started, I guess, and that Mustang has such a big part of that. What can you tell us about that?
You know what, Jim? That's kind of funny. We used to, when we would go to the Tokyo Auto Salon every year, we'd always we would go like to maybe Hong Kong or, you know, since we're so far out there. And I can remember a Sunday we were sitting out in front of our hotel and they were doing some street work and they had some barricades and all these guys, you know, with all these skylines were just coming down and the barriers, when they'd go around the barrier, they would just gun it and go faster. And they basically built it like a little, you know, it was like Sunday early morning, built like almost like a little race car. But it's just such a different culture over there, you know, just completely. And it's kind of started there. So, you know, all the cars that were like the Japanese. So when we had Wings West, all the guys here wanted what, you know, they had over there, and it was vice versa.
Martin, you ever tried drifting? You ever try it, or you ever tried drifting, Martin? Has that got any?
Not on purpose. No. You know, it's funny. You brought up a picture of Vaughn there.
That's good.
I did some off-road racing with Vaughn last year and the year before, so I got to know him a little bit. And every time I see his drifting pictures out there or drifting videos, it's like, you know, everyone thinks drifting's easy because everyone can throw the back end of a car out. You know what I mean? But I don't know how he does what he does when he's this far from a wall. It looks like fun. I'd like to give it a try sometime, but yeah, it's just time and I'd like to use your car, Jim, not mine.
Let's try this and try some technology here. Let's see how this works. You ready? Let's go big here and
who's driving? Oh, nice wheels.
I'm excited already.
Kind of kicking myself that I didn't get one.
Well, that was my I found that video today, and I know Martin, you're dying for a GT500. We're gonna get there to talk about the GT500. But what a world we're living in with performance cars. 750 horsepower out of the factory, and I guess, you know, I mean, we've been selling 700 plus horsepower Mustangs. You could call it out of the factory with a Ford Performance supercharger, but it's great. I mean, it's the pinnacle of muscle car. I think we're in it right now. I remember being a kid, and I was in high school in the late 70s, and I was disappointed. I thought I missed it. You know, I thought I missed the late 60s and the 70s, and it was never going to come back. And here we are. You know, so do you think this is the best era ever? Can you argue that, Martin?
Well, for me, I would say, yeah, it's the best. I mean, you know, 70 Chevelle was my first real car after that Capri. And I thought, man, I want a 70 Chevelle again. Well, I got one later on in life, and it was 800 and change. And I sold it a year later because it just didn't have what I wanted. It had the power, but it didn't have the technology. It didn't have I couldn't pull the G's. I couldn't do, you know, it wouldn't stop. It would go. You know what I mean? So today, I think we really do with cars like the GT500, the 350R, and you know, I could go on, and we all could. You know, we could rhyme off 20 or 30 cars that are right up there. Yeah, I think this is probably the pinnacle of. I like the styling of the 60s and 70s, and we talked about earlier Shelbys and in this case Chevelles, and you know, you can rhyme off lots of cool stuff. But these cars now just kill those. And Billy, you could speak to the styling side, but the technology and the capabilities now of the new cars by far, you know, dwarf anything we had in the 60s or 70s.
Well, we're going to talk about styling and design a bit more, but I have one more question for you, Martin, on that GT500. How do you feel about the car coming with an automatic? And I know you have other performance cars in your stable that are a DCT, and what do you think?
Well, you know what? It's funny because this red car's for sale, and I said to Ginger the other day, Ginger's my wife. I said, "Man, I'm selling the only standard I have." So it's just the way it goes now. And I recalled then that the R actually has a stick as well. But you know what? That new 10-speed's quite a tranny. Obviously, I don't have it. I have it in a Ranger and I have it in a Super Duty. Pretty cool tranny. I can only imagine once it gets mated to more power and tuned accordingly that it's going to be nothing but astonishing, really. And you know what? I'm one of the old guys, and Billy, I don't know about you, but man, I'm never giving up my sticks. Never get up my sticks. You know what I mean? But you start getting behind PDKs and other good trannies. You know what I mean? And GT3 cars, and well, anything sequential. That's just a whole other thing where bang it up and bang it down as fast as you want. But some of these street stuff, they're pretty good now. So I'm gonna have to go with this. It's gonna be a good move for the 500.
Well, let's Billy. Billy, I'm going to bring you in here, and I'm going to ask you about the change in technology from a design standpoint. And I'll maybe cheat here a little bit and start. We'll start with this, but maybe just tell us a little bit. I took this shot at your plant. Billy's the vice president of AirDesign USA, and the headquarters is about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Mexico City in Cuernavaca. And I was just blown away by the technology that's in the industry. But what are we looking at here?
Well, that's just a picture of it's done on with for Alias. It's just a CAD drawing. So usually, like when we use it, or I like to put like it's like almost like a blue chrome. You know, that's like looks like a patchwork. But the cool thing about like all these cars we do for Ford or Ford license, well, here's a perfect example. It's like we did when the Ranger came out. It was a really late car getting to us, and we had all the CAD data. So I actually had, the time I got the car, I had like a month to get it painted for SEMA. And even it still amazes me, you know, on the CAD data is how accurate it is that all the parts just fit right up. I mean, you might get a little bit of attachment problem between, like, let's say on the base model to the Platinum, it might have, you know, like some of the trucks have fender wells in the side and some don't. So it might be an extra attachment point, but it's just unbelievable. Without even seeing the car, you can design this whole thing, do all the tooling, make all the parts, and like I said, it amazes me. The fit is almost unbelievable without even seeing the car, because it's basically like a less than a human hair, you know, in the CAD data when you get that from, you know, any of the manufacturers. That Ford gets it, or if I just scan the car myself.
And as a member of SEMA, like SEMA provides that to the industry, do they not? Like the ability to scan vehicles at their facility if you don't have access to yourself, do they?
Yeah, the SEMA works two ways. So they have a fee where they charge, it's like $365 a year to get into what they call the SEMA Tech. So what SEMA's point is, if let's say I have let's say I got a new Ranger and I'm doing it for SEMA, they'll come down and scan it for free. Let's say if I was Martin or something and I was making exhaust and I want it proprietary, and then SEMA has a discounted rate. I think it's like $65 an hour. So what SEMA wants to do is they want to have like a CAD data, like just like a library where you can go all the way back to, let's say, a 69 Mustang, and you could just go in there and have data for everything. So that's why if you have something that you'll share with them that's not proprietary, they'll come out and scan it for free, or you can take it up to SEMA in Diamond Bar, California, and they'll do it there too. So it's just, you know, it's like I'm probably one of their biggest users. You know, I'm up there all the time.
And when they supply you the actual CAD CAM drawings as opposed to making your own scan, is it more precise when you get the factory drawings as opposed to you know, having to scan the car yourself?
These scanning machines are they're all the new ones are just you know, they scan about everything. The only thing is that we're using Alias software and it's owned by AutoCAD, because AutoCAD is basically, you know, taking over everybody. Like most of the companies are on something like SolidWorks. And then the reason SEMA likes us is because we can take all the data. When they scan it, we can just take it raw. They don't have to convert it. You know, it takes hours to convert it down to, let's say, like a two-dimensional like AutoCAD. So on AirDesign's part, since like I said, you know, but using Alias is a very expensive. You know, you're going to probably pay, you know, between the seats, you're up to like $50,000 a year just for, you know, the seats to use it. So you have to have, like I said, you got to get a big ROI on your return on your investment to go with the software. But it's like, to me, software in design and everything, because I used to do it the old way. I used to be like a sculpture and a surfboard shaper. So I used to do everything by hand. And now doing it on the computer, you would never go back to that, because one way is, let's say I do like a flared fender on one side in 1/10 of a second, it's already on the other side. It just mirrors it.
All right.
So I mean, you know, you can imagine doing it by hand. You go, oh, I'm done. Then, oh man, I got to go to the other side and do it now.
Well, like the technology at the factory level, and I came across this here, and you were talking about some of the designers at Ford. I mean, you wear virtual reality headsets and you're not even looking at a real car. You can kind of see it all in 3-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Have you ever had?
And the way it works is the guys now are designing, when they're wearing that headset, they're designing with their hands. You know, their hands, you know how like in sculpturing or something, or like when I used to shape by hand, I'd have one hand on the car and I'm feeling it and my other hand's shaping it and it's going through my brain. So now with virtuality, you're actually just taking your hands, you know, they got, you know, and they got the screen and they're shaping the car like this. It just takes it to the next level. That's just going to be the future. Technology is going to go crazy.
And I guess the time frame to go from idea to production, right?
Well, it's like when we first got in the truck business, and you've been to the plant and you saw when we had the CNC routers that would router the flares. It would take like 4 days. So you'd have to take the flare, kind of hand trim it, or you take it and trim it down, hand trim it, put it on the truck, and then there'd be some low spots and you'd have to do like a Bondo splash. Now with 3 different types of software, I mean, we can do in 4 days, in hours, you know, with the KUKA robots. And you take all that out of there in the human element. And you saw how I mean, that robot, they could strap you in that robot and they could drill your teeth out and it wouldn't even, that's how tight, you know, how accurate that thing would, I wouldn't want to try it, but.
Well, what do you think, when you look at the latest Mustang offering from you're a partner with Ford, if you will, a partner, you're making a lot of Ford licensed accessories. Where's your opportunity to make money going forward in these accessories? What do you see?
That's probably one of the best joint ventures. So AirDesign will absorb all the tooling. Let's say like when we did the Ranger, like, you know, and obviously you've done a couple of the Rangers in our escape kits. So we could get the data probably, oh man, it's like probably anywhere from 3 to 4 months before it comes out, or even longer. So now the way it's working now with Ford license, we have to have all the products done what they call before job one now. So it's all signed off. So like when you, let's say you're going to get like one of the new Broncos, the Bronco Sport, or any of that stuff comes out, we would have to have all that stuff done before you got the car. So now when you get the car, you can buy our parts. It's not like especially with the escape kit, we get it done, and then it takes 3 or 4 months for the engineers to put it on the car, and we lose all that time selling to a Ford dealer like you. So this, the way they've reorganized, and we kind of got sucked into this. Like I said, we got to have everything done by job one. So that means the day you get the car, the accessories will be ready for it.
And SEMA is still, that's where these things are going to debut for the most part of this. It kind of still all revolves around the SEMA show, does it not?
Yeah, and it's funny because there's a gentleman that runs the whole thing. It's called Mike Spagnola. When I had Wings West, he had street scenes, and we were always competitors. And I would do like Hondas, he would do trucks. And so what happened is, this is probably about 4 or 5 years ago, SEMA, or he put a proposal to SEMA, and so he became VP of SEMA on this technology. And he started that whole project, what's called the SEMA Garage, is to bring all the CAD data in, work with the manufacturers, because he was doing a lot of cars for like Chevy and Ford at SEMA. So he had the contacts. And then, SEMA being a nonprofit organization, and like they have the big Faro arms, and they basically got those things for like half price because they're basically a teaching college. And now they've got data. They'll also SEMA bring in cars from from Russia, or certain vehicles that like the people need for, it's going to be a big aftermarket. And you saw a lot of it when I went to Saudi Arabia, and I was talking to Miles. He's the CEO of Dub, and he's been trying for 20 years to get his Dub shows into Saudi Arabia. So he's all excited now because of this new young, what I call the prince. They're starting, because you can't really modify a car in Saudi Arabia. So now they're going to start loosening up all these, so it's going to be great for, this is where that global auto show came in. So there's going to make it for people in the aftermarket. It's going to be a great opportunity in what they, what I call they call it MEA, Middle East Africa.
Maybe not so good for a Turkish diplomat, but for the aftermarket it might be good. So the SEMA show, how does it work from the two of your perspective? How does it work when you're going to build a concept car for SEMA and have manufacturer support? What goes on there?
Well, it's just like Martin can talk to this. So I've known Martin for a while, but it's all going to be based what I do for him. So let's say I come to him for a sponsored exhaust, and if I just take it and sell the car and he doesn't get anything out of it. But if I build a car and I can get an award on it and get magazines, I do videos, and I can start hashtagging him, or I let him to his car shows. So it's kind of like it's all about reputation. So the more you give back to the sponsors, the more they're gonna play with you or sponsor you. Because in the old days, people would get, let's say you do one for Ford's booth, and they'd be like 1-800, hey, I'm going to build a car for Ford. The guy, then you guys are building in the garage. So it's like anything else, because like on some of these builds, let's say like the Ranger, it's probably $180,000, $200,000 for AirDesign to do all, build all the engineering and toolings. But it gives us, we're 6 months ahead of everybody else. Plus, we can sell to all the Ford dealers, all through North America. So the sponsors I work with, I kind of try to stay with the same people all the time, and build up a reputation, because it's got to be a win-win for everybody.
You ever get asked for free exhaust, Martin?
No, never. But you know what goes around comes around. So you know what, I'm gonna jump on Billy's comment. I actually believe that I built MBRP on the back of building SEMA vehicles, because back in the day, in 1999, I built my first SEMA vehicle, which is in 2000, it was a 1999 F-250 that I had flown to British Columbia, bought it. It was the only one with a standard in a diesel, I drove it back home from British Columbia, and then I built it up. I drove it all year, built it up, and then I went to SEMA. And long and short of it is, to Billy's point, it's all about relationships. And the SEMA show was that gathering of the brightest minds and the designers and the guys that actually had the wherewithal to bring the products to market, much like Billy does with his company. And you know what? I mean, I've been fortunate enough to win design awards at Daimler Chrysler in the day. I've won design awards with General Motors. And you kind of asked about working with the OEs. Now, I've gone totally different direction than Billy has, I think, where I used to get the vehicles for free, or technically they would give you an invoice for $1, and you get a free vehicle. And that was so wonderful when you're a young guy and you could say, oh yeah, you know what, GM, yeah, I work with GM, or I work with the, such and such. But I actually came to a point where those vehicles were far from free.
Yeah.
So ultimately we got to a point in time where we had built a lot of vehicles with the OEs, and then I just started building them for myself. But I think it still stands today that if you want to bring a product to market, whether it's an exhaust system, or whether it's a killer front spoiler or ground effects or any of the parts that Billy makes, you've got to be on the hottest and coolest cars. You've got to be with the coolest people. And I often said, people buy from the cool kids back in the day, and I still think they do it today. So if Billy builds the very best exhaust in the world, but he just sits in the shop, cuts welds and grinds, and I build the second best exhaust in the world, and I'm out there. I'm at the shows and events, and I'm building relationships, and I will outsell Billy 10 to 1. You know what I mean? Even though his may be the best exhaust. So to the point, you need SEMA, you need the relationships, and to Billy's point again, you stick with. When you brought up Mike's name, I can remember calling Mike back in the day and getting parts for my Sunfire. You know what I mean? That I was building as General Motors. So first off, it's a small world, the automotive world, and then when you break it down to the SEMA and the movers and shakers and stuff, I really don't even play a role anymore in SEMA. Like I remember where I was started getting in with the cool kids and building the cool vehicles, but now to build vehicles for SEMA, it's changed. Billy, I'm sure you see this, but it was the manufacturers like myself, say the up and comers or the guys that were already there in manufacturing, but now it's the kids that like they work on a farm or they have a regular job or they. And when I built my vehicle, like I got a lot of free parts, but it would have been maybe like that first vehicle ended up on the cover of magazines. And I might have had 80,000 into it after the buy, you know what I mean? But these guys now, like, and if I brought that vehicle out today, that would be a daily driver. What was on a magazine of of off-road magazine would be basically a kid's daily driver today, because it's been shoved so far up. Like, I don't know. Billy, what do you think? 200, 250? Like, what's the number you got in some of these big lifted trucks now with, multiple everything and air ride front and rear, and you know what it's all about.
Yeah, you're right on that. It's like unless you got an avenue, it's like I have some friends the Berti family. They built this killer F-250 and
totally.
Yeah, they put $250,000 in it, but they use that money for real estate or something else. But it's got them a TV show now, or actually they got 2 TV shows that's turned into that.
Yeah, and they do build killer stuff, needless to say. Yeah.
Well, what was Martin, your first experience like going to SEMA show? What was, tell me a bit about that.
Okay. 2000 in the 99 Super Duty, built it, cleaned it all up, drove all the way to Vegas. I got to Vegas a day early, and I couldn't get into my hotel. So I had a buddy, James Treadwell. Like we've done everything together. We've raced down the middle of Main Street. We've done 250K flybys at the shop and Shelby's and stuff like that. Long story short, we get there a day early. I couldn't get into my hotel, but because it's SEMA, you can't get a hotel anywhere. So I had to drive out the strip towards the drag strip. And as you start driving out there, like it gets pretty shabby. But I found a motel that was an M, like as an M, not an H hotel. So I got a motel, and the guy says, "Yeah, you know what? You can stay here." I don't know, whatever it was at night. So here I'm parking, my pride and joy. I mean, I have every dollar. Like this is the very beginning of MBRP. I mean, I have no money, and I put it into a truck. Here I am parking it in the middle of, I don't know, a pretty shabby spot anyway. and I have to leave it outside, and I'm wondering what the heck's going to happen, and I barely sleep with my truck out there. Long story short, call it a night. The room above me, somebody's fighting up there, and I knew it was a boy and a guy and a girl. And then all of a sudden, so my buddy and I, because we're sharing a room, right? So all of a sudden, we get woken up because somebody goes through the window, and we thought, man, the guy threw his girlfriend out the window. So we look at each other and go, you got to go help her. So we put our clothes on. We don't know what we're getting into. We go upstairs. She had thrown him out the window, and he was lying in the balcony. And this is my first night in Vegas. You know what I mean? Like, I can't wait to get to Vegas. Can't wait to go to the SEMA show for my first show. Billy, you'll laugh at this. I built this truck, and we were in the Silver Hall. You remember what the Silver Hall was? It was a tent way out in the middle of nowhere that nobody ever went to. Now they go to the Silver Hall. But anyway, so we end up, the hotel owner comes out. He doesn't care about the guy bleeding all over. He just wonders who's going to pay for the window. So my buddy James and I, we end up picking this guy up, taking him to the hospital. Like, his girlfriend wanted nothing to do with him. The motel owner wanted nothing to do with him. And we spent the night in a hospital with some guy we don't know. And that was my first night. It all got better after that, where, we sat in the Silver Hall waiting for people to talk to us. At least everyone loved the truck we built. And we were very fortunate to shoot it for the cover of Four Wheel Parts, Off-Road, and a few others out in the desert. So after the SEMA show, I went out there, and then, of course, anybody that knows me, when I usually get asked to do something, I usually go to the nth degree. And of course, the editor out there says, do you think you could jump that dune? Well, the long and short of it is I had to drive it home yet. And I'm already late going home because now I didn't know I was staying. Nobody told me you might go to the desert after the show. I said, of course I could jump that dune. So I launch it. Well, we bust the drive shaft. We take the front end out of it. We do everything. So now I had to get a tow truck to find some shop. And I think it was, what day is the SEMA show end? Is it a Friday? So I think this was a weekend.
Yeah.
I got somebody to fix it on Saturday and Sunday. And we drove home in rear wheel drive all the way home. We got stuck in Colorado. We had to sit at a bar for a day because you're going through the mountains. And that was my first trip to SEMA.
Well, we have Matt Baumruck is asking, I hope I pronounced that right, if for either of you guys, did you ever have high expectations for a product that you brought to SEMA and had it flop and be a lot less successful than you originally thought? I've had some flops.
No, because I put it this way. Let's say if I'm only good as last year. So to me, it's always starting over every year. So I never take nothing for granted. So it's,
But you never had something you took to SEMA and it was a dog. It just didn't fly. Martin's itching to tell me about his, but
I have one word.
I've been pretty lucky because, I've always been on pretty good cars. So.
Well, you have won 11 SEMA design awards from Ford Motor Company in a row. So I'd say there's more than luck to that there, Billy. But what were you going to say, Martin?
One word.
Yeah.
Pontiac Aztec.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Billy, you might have seen this one.
That's a
I remember that car now. Yeah.
Do you remember?
Oh, that was ugly. Okay. You made it even uglier.
Look at that, boys.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember, Billy, do you remember Bob Kern?
Oh, yeah.
So I built this vehicle for him. Some reason, they wanted to get the Aztec out there. And Bob hooked me up with that vehicle, and he's passed away now. A great guy, though, man. I enjoyed working with and for him. And you know what? I say that jokingly because I wouldn't say that was a mistake. That was just a young entrepreneur wanting to make a mark, and we tried doing it with an Aztec. So that would be kind of maybe one of those lessons or one of those times for me.
Let me ask you let's get back on to performance and Mustang performance. And
sorry, Jim, I just want to jump in for a second. Martin, I Googled that Aztec SEMA show and I found it online. I'll send you the link later. It's still out there.
Still out there. It never goes away. Just like this, it'll never go away.
Took me 2 seconds to find it. You'll never live that down.
From a performance standpoint in exhaust, and does loud equal performance, I guess, is my first question. And what is the difference between from a performance standpoint, turbocharged and normally aspirated and back pressure, how important is that role?
Well, to answer your first question, no. Loud is cost effective almost. You know what I mean? Because basically, you could take mufflers out, make it loud. It's not going to be faster. It generally doesn't dyno test out with more horsepower or torque. So, and like I said earlier, you know, when you less technology, it's easy to sort of, you know, do this, you know, look through your muffler and out you go, and that generally could be loud. Now, when you get to turbo natural aspirated, you'll normally find that less back pressure is better on turbo cars, and then generally non-turbo cars do like some back pressure. So we start with flow benching everything, and we'll get a standard from the stock system. And then we'll know that generally now, like my designers, all my designers have been around for many, many years. Everybody loves that department. They're a good group of guys. I'm blessed to have a really good group of design guys upstairs there. And they know basically whether it's a Mustang or any other muscle car platform or truck or what have you, they kind of know where we need to go. And we'll, after that flow bench, we'll get some prototypes built, throw it on the dyno, and we're within where we need to be almost every time until somebody throws us a curveball now with some of the limitations from the factory ECUs and stuff like that, where, you know, it'll just limit various power and odds and ends. So long and short of it is loud is not more power. And basically turbo cars like less back pressure than more.
Well, I think one of the unique things about exhaust as a performance product is it appeals to customers from so many different aspects, and not the least of which is appearance. That's one of the, you know, they want it to make their car look better. I know you've got carbon fiber tips and you got the double wall tips, but you know, the whole design of exhaust, we used to think about the V6 Mustangs back in the day, like, how hard could it be? Just give me a dual exhaust, tip out the back. Why would you just stick that one little ugly pipe coming down there? And of course, in the aftermarket, people would buy the back bumper conversions in that. So it's become an aesthetic part of the performance enthusiast. And the Mustang, I think it does a killer job. And those dual tips out the back on the active exhaust, but there's always room for improvement. You know, filling the hole up bigger. Billy, do you get into designing exhaust tips, or your friends at Ford, when they're designing a vehicle, it's got to be an important part,
right? Funny, I was just thinking, I was listening to Martin earlier on that, it's, you know, dual exhaust. Everybody wants dual exhaust. It's, and you can see it in the cars. So to me, it's, you know, bigger exhausts, you know, you want something like, you know, like Martin was saying with the carbon fiber, that's always a home run. You know, you want something with a 4 to 5 inch tip, you know, it's, because if you're going to put exhaust on, you're going to want to show something. It's like having a nice watch or something, or, you know, it's a piece of jewelry to me.
Yeah. Good term, piece of jewelry. I'm going to break. I don't even have that. I think I might have that picture. We're going to talk about Mustangs today and not about selling anything. But Martin, you've got my attention. We were talking in the last couple of days. The active exhaust, from a dealership standpoint, when it came out in 2018, we ordered everything with active exhaust on the V, because for $1,000, how am I going to get the customer better value? And you've got an active system, but you've got, tell us about the new part you got coming out, if you can. Can you talk about that, or?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know what, this 18 behind me and right up through the 20s have the active, as you know, and I think Ford basically hit a home run there, where they're giving the customer, you know, options, basically, you know, back to that good, better, best that I spoke of in quality and grades and material. You now have the moderate and, you know, right up to the race sounding exhaust of your car. So this particular car, being the first year with it, we grabbed it as a test mule, and we wanted to develop. And you know what? Yeah, it's awesome. So, but the neat part is, and I'm glad, and we spoke on this earlier, even when the factory brings something as cool as that, and really almost groundbreaking, whoever thought 5 years ago you'd be adjusting your exhaust from a factory Mustang, you know what I mean? Not alone 10 or 20 years ago. But thankfully we have, you know, muscle car guys out there. We have hot rod guys out there. We have performance minded guys out there that want to make their cars look and sound better. So Billy and I can keep our jobs here. You know, so what we did is, if you've got an active exhaust, the active is all at the muffler end of it. So if you're going to keep the active, you have to keep the muffler. But up in the front of that car is a resonator that the factory put in. And I have it sitting back here behind me, but you know what? It's an ugly looking resonator. Nobody cares. It's under the car. It doesn't flow all that well. It's very, very small diameter. Chokes the car up a little bit. So what we did is, to your point, anyone that spent that $1,000 on that resonator or on that car and that option, why not just give them a low cost, ease of installation option that'll allow you to go take your car from this sounding to this sounding, just moving it up the line a little bit. So you can install, there's that X pipe there. You can install that in lieu of your middle resonator on your 18 to 20 GT 5 liters. And basically all your active works, all your track modes and all your everything, all your modes are still in play. And yet everything's just one notch all the way up. And again, coming back to the customers, let's face the facts. You buy a Mustang, you want to alter it. You're putting Billy's new front fascia on, or you're putting some scoops on, you're putting wheels on, you're upgrading something. And I'm glad that small items like this resonator bypass, we call it, is another one of those items that Mustang owners are choosing to install.
I mean, what I like about that is, okay, you're going to remove the resonator. You're going to get an X pipe. It's going to improve the flow. Getting rid of the resonator, you're going to have a raspier, deeper tone, but you're still going to have the factory ability to use the active exhaust to quieten it down. I mean, I think that's going to be a home run. We're going to head into the home stretch here. We've been almost an hour and a half for our first Facebook Live. We probably lost everybody. They're bored. I want to remind you that if you're out there and you've sent in a question, just send us your contact information. We got tell us, what do you want? You want a Mustang hat? You want a t-shirt? Tell us your size. You want a keychain? We appreciate their participation for Mustang Day. I think it's been just great hanging out with you guys, and wish that the world was in a different place. But you know what? November is the SEMA show. We got to be back there, I hope. And from that, if you guys have any final comments that you want to talk about.
Not many people have dropped off, by the way. Actually, a lot of people have stayed with us the whole way. So just a shout out to everybody who's been watching and listening. Thanks a lot.
Well, I shouldn't have started with a full mug of coffee then, because I got to take a deep. Well, I've got a couple more questions here then before we get into that. I got, what do we got here? I got Richard Glanville says, off topic. It's never off topic, Richard, if you want to talk about an F-150. But he says, when is the F-150 getting dualies? I think he means dual exhaust. Well, Billy, if he knew that, he wouldn't tell us anyway. And Martin's hoping never. And I'm hoping it's like next week. And yeah, I think your point is, and it's well taken, it's an opportunity that, we did bring it out in 2019 in the F-150 Limited. And that tells me that it's coming soon, I think.
Hey, Billy, just run your fingers through your hair if it's 2021, Billy.
It's funny, even that I get all this data, it's like we make floor liners, but we don't make them for Ford. So they don't give me that data. So
right. You only get what you need.
Exactly.
Martin on topic here. So Matt Baumer, I want to keep my active exhaust on my 16 GT350, and almost no one makes an exhaust for it to keep it. So will this X pipe? Go ahead.
Well, I have both actually. Believe it or not, it's Matt, is it?
Yep.
We have an X pipe for that car, which sounds absolutely killer, and we actually have an active exhaust system for it as well. Now, here's the best part. You probably can't find it because my website sucks. But I'm building a new website right this minute. I have a team of crack website designers on it. Long story short, we can get you hooked up if you need a part. Look me up on social media, Matt, and I'll get you a sweet deal.
Oh, aren't I one of your resellers out of Bad Dog Mods, Martin? Thanks. Call Jim. Beat his price. I'll beat his price.
We made it so far without the shameless plugs. Good job, guys. Geez. So far. Just over an hour and a half before the first plug. Good try.
Jim, you set me up on that one, didn't you?
Yeah. All right. Well, and thanks very much for joining us here today. I'm going to call it quits. We are reduced hours these days, and but I want to wish everyone out there to be safe. And gosh, it would just be so awesome from getting these questions coming in. It would be so awesome if we could just be outside in the warm weather driving our Mustangs right now. Ted Smith's question from Ted Smith: if you have the Venom, you don't have the plastic cover over the supercharger, do you? No. So with the you might be talking about the help me out here. What connects the two front? The tower strut brace. So you have to lose the strut brace when you put the supercharger on the standard Mustang. It just doesn't fit. So that's not the plastic piece, but the actual housing, at least with the Ford Performance / Roush Performance supercharger, there's no plastic there. That's a robust piece of equipment. So, but you do lose the tower strut brace, and that kind of is a sexy piece, but it is what it is. There's aftermarket strut braces that are designed to fit up over top of that in the sort of a thinner tube. But thanks for that question. All right, I'm going to let you guys finish here. We're done for now. Ted gets himself a T-shirt for that question. Good guy. Billy, any last comments from sunny and warm California? You want to tell us about the 2021 Mustang that you can't talk about?
Well,
I guess not.
You brought about the SEMA show, so May 4th is we do the drawing for our booth. So it looks like everything's moving forward.
Cool. And Martin?
No, you know what? I've had a blast. You know what? Hope Ford keeps cracking out big V8 and EcoBoost Mustangs, not those E things. And other than that, I've had a great time being on here with everybody, and great to see you, Jim, and Billy.
Oh, well, thanks a lot. You know, I'm as a Ford dealer, couldn't be happier with our product right now. We're just gonna kill it with the product coming out, and you know, Mustang's been a big part of it. And right now, the plant is closed and it's building ventilators. So that's more important than more Mustangs right now, the way we are. But we're going to turn this thing around real fast. I think it's going to be much faster than people currently believe. But you know, we still got at least another month before that's going to happen. But I wish everybody safe, healthy, and I really want to thank you for tuning in and watching for our first ever Facebook Live. It's amazing what this life has changed us to, and we go from shaking hands in the showroom to doing things digitally. But it's cool, and it's time it changed, so it's awesome. Once again, I'm Jim Carson from Blackstock Ford Lincoln, and appreciate it. Happy Mustang Day, everybody, and thank you for joining us. And thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good one.
Bye.